Welcome back to another Live Each Day with Purpose podcast episode. I am so excited. I have a special guest, Danielle Hansen, and this is kind of a very interesting connection. We kind of connected by chance. We actually have someone in common that kind of in a interesting way brought us together, and through talking about our experience and our faith we really connected, and we want to share with you things that we've learned, things that we're still learning, and just a really important message that we think will not only help women, single women, Christian women, but will also maybe kind of be an awareness to men. I think this is something that men and women can both learn from, and we're hoping that this can be educational, but also giving others hope. So, Danielle, welcome.
Thank you so much, Whitley. I love getting to be here and talk with you.
I am so excited. And so, this episode is called Destructive and Toxic Relationships and How to Spot the Red Flags Early On. Because, as we've discussed, that can be really hard to do.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
so I'm going to kind of go through a little bit of what destructive relationships and toxic relationships are, because I think oftentimes people don't really know. Like they think they know, but they don't really know the exact definition. And so destructive relationships is defined by involving behaviors that lead to emotional, mental, or even physical harm. The intent may vary. Some people who are involved in these relationships knowingly inflict pain, while others may not fully realize the damage they're causing. And I think that's really important, especially when it comes down to what is the intent of the person who might be hurting you. But destructive behaviors can erode self-esteem, create ongoing stress, and often lead to a loss of one's sense of self. And some key characteristics are intense conflict, abusive behavior, gaslighting or manipulation, isolation and control, and intentional harm. Um, and so then toxic relationships are can have a negative effect, but they don't always stem from a direct intent to harm. They might arise from incompatible communication styles, unaddressed personal issues, or ongoing negative patterns. Both parties may feel trapped, frustrated, or constantly on edge, but it's not always due to abusive behavior. And the characteristics for that is poor communication, unresolved resentments, constant criticism or negativity, emotional exhaustion, and lack of respect or appreciation. And how to know the difference is intent and awareness. And especially if you go to someone, you're expressing like, this is hurting me.
Mm-hmm.
Can you please change? And they're like, okay, like they take notice and they keep doing it again. I mean, I think it's out there so much where it says doing that once is a mistake. But when someone consistently does the same thing over and over again after they've already been told of the harm it's causing, that's no longer a mistake, it's a pattern. And so,
Mm-hmm.
really being on the lookout for that. And we're going to kind of dive into that later on of boundaries and patterns and kind of knowing that. But that's kind of part of the red flags. And we're going to
Mm-hmm.
be talking about a few really important things that are, I think, kind of trendy and hot topics right now, especially all over social media. I mean, like love bombing, gaslighting, ghosting, stonewalling, breadcrumbing,
Mm-hmm.
what that actually is. Again, we're going to go through definitions so people are very clear. But then, like, kind of all the just ins and outs of it. And then we're also going to share our own personal experiences with what that is, to give you examples so that like in real life this is what it might be, because I think a lot of people may experience that and then they're like, oh, but it's no big deal, like they just had a bad day. and,
Mm-hmm.
and they don't realize until there's now been numerous red flags of, oh, this is really bad, I missed this red flag. And as we discussed, it can be really easy to miss red flags.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So let's talk about love bombing. I feel like this is something that's kind of thrown out there a lot. I feel like in a lot of ways it's not completely understood, and some people might even misuse it on social media. I would
Mhm.
suggest not always going to social media to figure out what things are. But love bombing is when someone shows you with excessive attention, affection, and praise in the early stages of a relationship to quickly build an intense emotional connection. It often feels overwhelming and can feel too good to be true. Like, Danielle, in your life throughout relationships, what has been your experience with love bombing?
Well, I love that we are diving into this because I feel like relationships are our wealth. Like we really uh, to get even a quality of life. Like we really need to learn how to do relationships well. Um, that that takes a lot of wisdom and discernment. And when you first meet someone, like we are in our 30s and we didn't know them for the first 3 decades of their life. So it does we kind of have to look back. What I know, you're showing me what I want to hear and what I want to feel, but who really are you? Because I know when you are coming on too strong and too soon, what I really want to see what is truth here. Like what who really are you? Because when you come on like that, I don't have a trust that this is real. Like this is what you're going to be forever.
Yeah, yeah. And I feel like oftentimes, like these people that are doing the love bombing, they know what they're doing. And they're
Mhm,
usually starting something like this with someone who's at a very vulnerable place and
mhm,
maybe might be hurting, might be struggling, might be going through things. I know, like we were discussing when we had met this person we have in common,
yeah,
we both weren't in a very good place. We were going through
mhm,
different things. And so we were already like the perfect person to be
mhm,
for him to be meeting and love bombing because we needed to hear these things because we
mhm,
were already in a hurting place. And
mhm,
so when you hear these love bombing things, you're beautiful, you're special, you're amazing,
mhm,
even despite what you're going through, like I'm on your side, I'm here for you, you're going to get through this. It's like a healing balm for your soul.
mhm.
Eat it up and it just you can't get enough because it's like, oh, this
Yeah.
is so healing. Unfortunately, we're getting healing from the wrong place, from the wrong person. And it's how you can quickly catch feelings, how you
Mhm,
can quickly find yourself having this emotional connection, almost a trauma bond that's starting. And really feel like they're your person, like, oh my gosh, you understand me. Like
mhm,
I feel understood. And you know, in life, we're made for community, we're made for relationships, and we're
mhm,
made to be known and to know somebody else. And so to be understood, I think oftentimes in a society when people are mostly misunderstood, it's such a breath of fresh air. It's like, I'm understood, I'm accepted. And that acceptance is like so important.
yes.
When it's coming from the wrong person with the wrong intentions, it can be very harmful. And some of the early red flags is moving too fast in the relationship, like professing love
Mhm,
within a very short time, constant
mhm,
text, gifts, or social media attention, especially early on, making grand promises about the future, even though they don't know you well yet. And then excessive compliments, big romantic gestures too soon, constant communication, promises of a future together. And again, you can be wanting that so bad,
mhm,
and which makes you so vulnerable. And then you think he's
mhm,
different.
mhm,
Like he's I feel like he's becoming my best friend. And Do you have specific things, examples of that you can share of how you were love bombed?
Yes, so often when I initially go into a relationship, you love that because you're like, okay, they know how to love.
Yep.
They really do. And it feels like, um, okay, well, I know that you are good at loving. You're trying to show me that. But the so often I'm like, you are indicating that real love comes from me, and I love that. However, I when you do feel like it's too much too soon, you're like, oh, who really is this person? And so often I try to feel like, okay, what is truth in this?
Mhm.
I know, I want to know really who you are,
Mhm.
and that's hard to figure out in the first 2 weeks or month or so. um Often I feel a red flag comes up because it's like, oh, I can do this for you. I can give this to you. And more, I really, really start to trust the person, not because I trust them, but it's just because they're like, oh, I can give you all these things that I know how to do to make you trust me. Um,
Mhm.
and so often during the initial stages, my prayer is, Lord, show me what your love is,
Mhm.
because that is what is true, and not this facade of like, I, I haven't even known your upbringing, or I don't even know who you are. So please stop trying to sell yourself to me.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes.
No, it's so true. And I think trust.
Yes.
With the love bombing, it is a thing of trust. And I will say, in this situation of what I experienced, it was there's nothing
Mm,
that you'll say that would chase me away. Like, I
mhm,
am here for you. I will support you. And everything you've shared, I don't see you any differently because I had shared some of my story
mhm,
with him as he was sharing some of his story with me, and he had said something like, let's get it all out now, like, so
mm,
there's no surprises down the road, and like we'll know everything, and then we just get to know each other. And everything I shared, it was welcomed, it was accepted. You're not alone. I understand. He said, like, it's okay. And that felt very relatable. It also felt like we were in the same place and we
mhm,
understood each other. It was like that level of understanding each other. And I think something else that of another example that I went through was
mhm,
in sharing like the story and what happened. What was said to me was, he found an amazing girl
mhm,
I would spend the rest of my life with, but yet he screwed you over. And I will say, let's take these
mhm,
like things I just shared. Men need to be so careful in what they say to women, because
mhm,
clearly what they're saying means something so different to them than how it's going to mean to us. And so when
mhm,
we're hearing, you're safe,
mhm,
I'm not going to judge you, you can share anything with me, it's like,
mhm,
finally someone,
mhm,
the protection. And that's what we need, and that's what the man's supposed to be, is like protecting our hearts, guarding our hearts. And then to hear, like, you're the woman I'd want to spend the rest of my life with, don't say that if you don't feel that way. Like, that is such a bold statement that it better
mhm,
have those true emotions behind it. If not, you're leading a woman on, because what she's thinking is, you
mhm,
see me as marriage material, you see me as the one, you see a life with me. If you're saying you could spend a life with her, you're saying
mhm,
life with me. Now I'm thinking about a life with you. Like, those aren't empty words to us. So don't say things you don't me because then it stirs in us emotions. It stirs
Mhm.
in us like we're mentally picturing it. We're thinking, oh, okay, like could I see a life with them?
Yeah.
And this can cause a lot of harm down the road when the words you say end up being empty.
Mhm.
And here we are feeling the feels and we're thinking you're this trusted person that we can give our heart to. And then we have the rug pulled out from under us and realize you never were. And
Mhm.
we're going to talk later on about how much damage that can cause. Do you
Yeah.
have anything else to add to love bombing before we go to
Oh,
dating?
well, I just empathize with that because so much I now in dating, I'm like, okay, I don't know if I really take what you say with real truth until I've known you at least like 3 months or at way or more.
Mm-hmm.
Because at the initial stage, I'm always like, okay, I know you're trying to win me over, but I really want to know who you were growing up, who what your real character is over what your charisma is showing me right now.
Yes. And oh, so I love that you said that because oftentimes when people are describing a man or meeting a man, or even sometimes Danielle, how
Mhm.
men describe themselves, they'll say like I'm really charming, and they'll call themselves charming, and I'll be like,
Oh.
that's kind of scary because in scripture it says charm is deceptive
Hmm.
and beauty is fleeting. And so when I hear a guy start off and he's like,
Yeah.
well, I'm charming, I'm this, I'm like, that's not a good quality.
I know.
And now you're arrogant, and that's really not a good quality. Like, where's the humility? Like, that to me is a huge red flag. Like, and I
Yeah.
think that's the problem is these people, these men that are doing this are coming across as charming, and
Yeah.
it's causing a lot of harm. And think of charming,
Hmm.
CHARMING. Harm is in charming.
Oh, I never thought.
And I didn't either until just right now. It just all of a sudden popped up, but harm's in charming. And
Yeah.
so we really need to be careful. No different than a guy being focused on our beauty needs to
Yeah.
be a red flag. If they're so focused on our beauty, um, we need to be very careful. And I will say, I have an example to that. I was having a conversation with a guy, and he was complimenting my pictures, and he was complimenting me. And I was wearing like faux leather pants and a bodysuit, form fitted clothes. And I said, as much as I like that you find this attractive, I would really like you to also find attractive me when I'm in a maxi dress and it's a
Hmm.
loose fitting clothing, it's not
Hmm.
form fitting. And he said,
Mm.
is that important to you? And I said, yeah, it
Yeah.
is. And he said, so you want the validation?
No.
And I said, no. What it is I think it comes from past relationships and wanting to make sure that I'm not just seen as this. And he said, so I have to deal with your past relationships?
No.
And Danielle, I was so caught off guard. I didn't know how to respond. But the thing was, a good godly man would be like, wait a second. So tell me more about those past relationships.
Tell
What's
me
going
more.
on? Like, yeah, like what is this triggering? Like, tell me what's going on. And then they would give reassurance, not
Mm.
validation of, here's my intention. Yes,
Yeah.
you look beautiful, whether you're in something form fitted or something more loose clothing where you can't see the shape of your body. Like,
Yes.
I'm not that guy. Like, I'm
Yeah.
not interested in you for that. They would reassure you. They're not going to get defensive and question you and give you a hard time when you're trying to express something. That is a huge red
Yeah.
flag.
Yes. I've had that recently, like, uh, almost like, "Oh, this scares me. I don't like this." Like, it's almost like, "I need you to reassure me on what you're presenting to me," and I did not like that. I just expected his maturity to be at a point where, oh, you like it's not validation that I'm needing. I need you to have like a spiritual maturity. That's what I'm
Yeah,
asking.
yeah, and even an emotional maturity. I mean, we're in a day and
Yeah.
age where men, 30s, 40s, 50s, it's becoming really clear that they aren't communicating and
Mhm.
they aren't really being receptive to when we communicate. They just shut down. And that's actually kind of further down in some of
Mhm.
these of the shutdown. But it's hard to have a relationship that can actually grow when you're shutting down communication or when a woman can't express
Mhm.
how she feels, because a strong even alpha male um will be like, okay, give me your emotions, and he can handle it and he'll hold space.
Mhm.
He'll be like, okay, let me tell you where I am. I'm going to be very crystal clear with my intentions so that you
Mhm.
don't have to second guess where I am. Like, I don't want to leave you hanging. I don't want to leave you second guessing. Like, you're going to know exactly what I'm doing, what I'm up to. You
Mhm.
won't have to ever question that. And
Mhm.
oftentimes, I feel like what happens is based on how men respond, we end up second guessing ourselves.
Mhm.
Was this really how I thought it was? Wait, I
Mhm.
could have sworn he said this. Maybe he didn't say this. Like, did I misread it? And then we don't trust our intuition.
Yeah.
Usually when we get that, like, kind of like little pause of, ooh,
Mhm.
what just happened? Oh, they just said that. We really need to take note of that and be like, okay, I don't know why I had that pause. I don't know why something feels off. I'm just going to kind of put it to the side and come back to it, because that might be something more. That might be the beginning of something more. It might be like a yellow orange flag now, but usually those yellow orange flags unfortunately turn to red flags.
Mhm. Yes.
Um, Gaslighting. So,
Yeah.
gaslighting is a manipulative tactic where the abuser tries to make the victim question their own reality, memory, or perception. Some of the red flags for gaslighting is denying things they previously said or did, where you might say, hey, in our conversation, you said, I
Mhm.
never said that. And it's like, well,
Mhm.
no, you did. And it's like, no, I didn't. And then they turn it on you and make you feel bad. And make you feel like you're imagining or minimizing your feelings or accusing you of being sensitive, too sensitive, overacting. Like in this situation where I said, yeah, it's really important that you think I'm attractive, regardless of if I'm wearing something form
Right.
fitting. And it's a thing of, I have to deal with your past relationships.
Mhm.
Like,
Mhm.
that wasn't the point of that.
Yeah.
You missed the mark of what I was trying to convey, or shifting the blame and saying things like, you have a terrible memory. You're crazy. That's not how that happens. No, that's not what took place. And the impact on the person that's dealing with that, it erodes her self-confidence,
Mhm.
makes her overly reliant on the partner's version of reality.
Mhm.
And I will say, this person that we have in common, when I would say, I'm thinking about our past conversation and this was really concerning, and I feel like you're doing this, and I just want to express this. Is this the case? And he would say, that's your narrative.
Mhm.
That's not what happened.
Mhm.
That's just your narrative. So you need to change your narrative to actually what
Mhm.
happened. And I'd say, okay, what do you think happened? And he would say this, and that. He said, you have the wrong narrative. And it would be very hard to have a conversation, because it was immediately, nope, you had it wrong. You wrong perception. You saw it wrong. And my feelings were actually being dismissed,
Mhm.
which caused me to question, do I really feel this way? Should I feel this way? Did that really happen? And then I'd think back, and I would even go through and look at text, and I'm like, no, 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 that really happened. It's right here in this text. This really happened. And I'm like,
Yeah.
just that would be really hard. Have you experienced gaslighting? And do you have,
It is hard. the gaslighting is so big, I think, in Christian dating because they make you feel responsible for their mistakes. And someone who cannot take accountability for their sin, for their just just for even sometimes even their emotional immaturity. Like we as Christian women are looking for a husband who is like, hey, man, I had a bad day. I am so sorry I wronged you. And I talked to the kids this way today, and I did not want to, I did not want them to see me like that way. Being able to take account of their mistakes and their slip ups. I mean, it is not the end of the world that you slip up. I do it all the time, but I think it's always so beautiful to be the one that apologizes first, the one that is like, hey, I know I disappointed you, not to put that back on this spouse, because that cuts them down so much, and there's no good in that when we are kind of devising each other against each other. Like, we are a team here. So the gaslighting is something, if you see that early on, I run from that, because I I think to be able to admit your own shortcomings is a big act of humility, which is so important to see in men.
Yes, yes. And I think even like in biblical marriage, you are supposed to be putting the other person first.
Yes.
And I usually tell my coaching clients, I'll say, outlove the other. When you're out loving and trying to outlove the other, you're not keeping
Mm.
a record of, well, wait, I brought her flowers, but she didn't do this, or I made him dinner and I made his favorite dessert, but he didn't do this. Like, you're just kind of like, how am I going to outlove, outlove, outlove? Which will make it easier that when there's an offense,
Mhm.
you're so already in that mindset of out loving, that's like, oh my gosh, I hurt you, not
Mhm.
again. You want to hash this out again. It's
Mhm.
like, no, oh wait, you're hurt, I hurt you, oh my gosh, I didn't mean to. Like, okay, how can I make it right? Because
Mhm.
hurting you hurts me, because when you're one, you're supposed to be, in sync with that. No different than what hurts God should hurt us. What hurts your spouse should hurt you. And whether you meant it or not, like, make it right. Something else for gaslighting, signs to watch for is statements like, you're too sensitive, that didn't happen, and the frequent denial of events or shifting blame. This is why it's so harmful. Over time, gaslighting erodes confidence and self trust. So, how in gaslighting would you respond is ground in your reality, like really analyze the situation and get a good understanding of what really happened, so that you're not second guessing, so that you're not questioning, well, wait, is he right? Or is how I saw it right? And you can
Mhm.
do that by keeping a journal and
Yeah.
then discussing the situation with trusted friends or trusted advisors, of saying, hey, what do you think of this? Like, this was the conversation. What do you think? And I will say, in the past, I've sent text messages to my best friends, so
Mhm.
that it wasn't like I'm coming to her and saying, oh my gosh, you're not going to believe what he did. It was, here's the text conversation. Tell me what you think. So that if I was in the wrong, she could say, actually,
Mhm.
I wouldn't have said it that way. Like, I really, truly wanted to know what offenses were committed, if any, so that I knew what accountability I needed to take, if I needed to
Mhm.
take any. And I kind of want to go back to love bombing a little bit, because I didn't kind of go through the impact on the victim or the impact on the person. But love bombing can lead to confusion and dependency, making it hard to step back when red flags emerge, because you do feel so much love. And I will say, in past relationships, it was when I took a step back and put the relationship on pause, took a break from it, that I was able to see the relationships, because sometimes their love bombing is so strong that it's almost carrying the love for you, and you think you feel a certain way, but you don't really feel the way they feel until you step back and you're like, I don't feel this way. I don't have that strong of feelings. And now that I'm looking at it from the outside looking in, I don't like what's happening here.
Mhm.
Why it's harmful is it can lead to dependency and may be used to manipulate later on. Things to watch out for: excessive compliments, big romantic gestures, and constant communication. And then just how to assess it, like slow down the pace,
Mhm.
like I did with the relationship, kind of taking a break, and set healthy boundaries, even if it feels difficult to do that. But that's a really quick way to know if there's someone that's safe. And I
Yeah.
don't mean necessarily physically safe. We're also talking about emotional and mental safety. If you set a boundary and they get upset, that
Mhm.
is a huge red flag that they don't have your best interest at heart. Because someone who truly cares and loves you, when you set a boundary, like, please don't talk to
Mhm.
me this way, will be like, I'm so sorry. Yeah, I shouldn't have talked to you that way. They won't be like, are you serious?
Mhm.
Like, they won't be quick to be defensive, because their intention really wouldn't be to hurt you. It's only people who that don't like boundaries are the ones that are benefiting from you not having the boundaries.
Yes. Yeah.
Ghosting. Ghosting is when someone suddenly cuts off all communication without warning, often leaving the other person confused and hurt. And I will say, of what I know about relationships, is you can feel a great loss from a relationship. Like, you are like grieving a death. Like, it can feel that strong. And so
Mhm.
when someone is telling you, no, we're good, everything's
Mhm.
good, nothing's changed, we're good. And then it's whew, quick stop. And you're like, whoa, what happened? I feel like it's, you kind of get relationship whiplash,
Mhm.
is what I told this person that we know. Because I had this specific conversation with him, and they were creating this ghosting, and it was just so hurtful, because for someone to be starting out with, I'm always there, I'll never leave, I'm your person, like I am your BFF. Even someone even saying, it's not you, it's just, it's been a busy week, I'm
Mhm.
working, that's the only change. And then you see it continue to happen, you
Mhm.
can kind of, it will almost make you think you're going crazy of, well,
Yes.
is it
Yes.
really that you're busy with work, where you're questioning things and being like, well, wait a second, no, 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 no.
Mhm.
If you could text me while you were on your way to that game or that or this or that meeting,
Mhm.
and now you can't text me because you're quote unquote busy, but yet you're able to post things on social media,
Uh,
or you're saying you're busy texting somebody else, you have time to text the person that you're talking to. Like,
yeah.
like it just floors me, Danielle, that guys will use this, and it's like, do you really think we're dumb? Like,
What makes it so confusing? It really does, because I remember in past relationships, like even making columns, like, is this, I mean, are you just falling away from the Lord? Is this a mental issue? Um, is this you just don't know how to be in relationship? Like, I have even made like columns of like, is this addiction or what? I mean, what is going on with you in your head? Because you really have to, like, I have many times in coming into contact with all these different toxic things. I'm like, what is this? What you are? I'm trying to write down and journal what my reality is, because I can't understand what is going on inside this person's head.
no, no. And especially when they say things to you like, you need to think the best. You're not thinking the best. And it's like, okay, I can think the best to a point, but when you keep saying you're going to do this, or you keep saying this or that, and then you're telling me that you talked to how many people today, and you couldn't send us quick text of,
Mhm.
this or that, when it takes seconds to do that. Like
Yeah.
that, it's just like, it's really hard to think the best when you're showing me that at this point, I need to
Mhm.
question whether I can trust you. And so, early red flags is a pattern of inconsistent
Mhm.
communication or periods of silence without explanation, avoiding deeper emotional conversation or commitments, refusing to give clear answers about intentions or the future of the relationship. And I will say, and this kind of leads into stonewalling, but some of the
Mhm.
examples I have were um, texting and calling.
Mhm.
I'd say, okay, we'd talk about connecting, and I have to go to the grocery store. It is just down the street. I will text you or call you in a second, in a bit, in 5 minutes. It'll be, and it might be hours later,
Yes.
hours, or getting a like quick call on a Wednesday night. Then that Wednesday night is like, I'll call you tomorrow morning, no call. Then you
Mm.
touch base and it's like, I'll get to you tonight. Too tired. I can't talk to you tonight. Then I'll call you tomorrow morning on Friday. No. And it's like,
Yeah.
what is going on? And something's going on, but then you get the think the best. You're not thinking the best. So now it's
Uh-huh.
your issue. Or you'll get, do you not realize how busy I am? And I'm like, dude, no one is that busy. Like you make a priority for whatever you want. And yet, oh, Danielle, the little like, and this is gonna get into breadcrumbing, the little things of,
Mm.
baby, I just want to call you for 5 minutes. Like, and it's like, okay, well, you use baby. So we're somewhat we're somewhat good. You made contact. And I think that's what ends up happening is
Uh-huh.
this is how this is so successful. You're like, well, if he really wasn't interested, he wouldn't have made contact. He made contact.
Yeah.
He might be making contact every day, but the contact might be 5 minute call, and I'll call you back. And that call does not happen. It's then delayed for the next few days, but you're texting. So you're thinking, well, we must still be good. He is really busy. And it's like, dude, I'm really busy. I don't have time for like playing these games, especially with people that said, I'm not going to mess with your head.
Mhm.
Not going to play games with you. Like, I wouldn't do that. I'm not like the other guys. That blows me away, Danielle, when guys know how other guys have treated you and they're like, I'm not them. I'm one of the good guys. Like, how would it feel for you to be dating a guy that's really, really good looking and such a leader and a good
Uh-huh.
this and a good that? Like, wouldn't you want someone like that? And you're like, yeah, of course
Mhm.
I want someone like that. Where is he?
Yes.
Because are you it? Are you basically volunteering that you're it? And then they show you that they're no different than the others. And let me just make some really,
Uh-huh.
we know that there's good guys out there. It's
Yeah.
just oftentimes women meet a lot of the really wrong counterfeit ones that claim they're all these things and then they end up not being. And that's the most frustrating thing is like, you knew how vulnerable we were, you knew how hurt we were, you knew what they did, you spoke out against what they did, and then you turned around and did the exact same thing. Why did
Uh,
you do that?
yes. And truly, I feel like if we are the Christian community, they I think what should set the Christian dating apart is the over clarity and the over communication. Like I, I, I clarity is kindness, and when there is no communication in that front, I think that is not kind at all. Connection is what we are hoping for, and and if there is not a lot of communication or clarity as to intentions or where I've been or what I why I didn't call when I was going to call, like yes, people are busy, but there is so much. I think what the Lord did on this earth was communicate in a way that showed us how to communicate with others. And especially in our intimate relationships, that is what should set us apart from every other relationship, is that we are better at communicating uh what is going on.
Yeah, and I will say, I had asked this person that we both know for clarity, and he had said, okay. He said, like, ask me all the questions and say what you need to say. And so I did. And he's like, all right. And I'm like, well, now I want clarity. He's like, you got it. And I said, how did I get clarity? He said, I let you vent. And I said, that's not clarity. Clarity is me saying what is going on and you responding. I said, because I'm confused. And no clarity. Like it was just no response. And to me, it's just when you know that someone wants clarity and is needing clarity, and it's and we're needing clarity because we're confused and we're trying to figure things out and sort things out. And you adamantly refuse to give them clarity, like that is one of the cruelest things you could do to someone's heart. Like, I know you want this, I'm not giving it to you. It's like, oh, how mean are you? But in ghosting, some of the red flags are a pattern of inconsistent communication or periods of silence without explanation, of avoiding the deeper emotional conversations or commitments, and refusing to give clear answers about intentions. And here's how this impacts the person on the receiving end of this. It can cause them self-doubt, frustration, and difficulty in moving on due to lack of closure. Closure, and I get it, in a lot of relationships you don't get closure, but gosh, if everybody was kind, or they would realize how important closure can be. You know, it can really help someone to know, because I think oftentimes when you don't get closure, you think it was me, it was me, it was me, something's wrong with me. But that closure can be like, if gosh, if men were like honest and like, listen, yeah, I'm leading you on. I'm sorry. I really don't have any intention of really pursuing this. It'd be like, oh, thank you so much. I'm gonna leave you doing your thing. Thank you for not hurting me. And I'm gonna go find someone who actually sees my worth and value and can appreciate me. Like, thank you for not adding more hurt onto hurt I've already been through, so that when I meet that amazing guy, he doesn't have to deal with all the hurt you and the other guys caused. Because that, I would think, would be the upstanding moral character integrity thing that a good guy should do. Things to watch out for with ghosting is unwillingness to commit or respond to messages, text.
Yeah.
Last minute cancellations or periods of complete silence. And here's why this is so hurtful and harmful. It leaves people confused, making closure difficult and impacting self-esteem. And here's what you do if this is happening. Still maintain your boundaries. Just realizing that this is more about the ghosters' issues than anything else. Like, it's not you.
Yes.
On the receiving end, this is not a depiction of anything wrong with you. This is an internal issue with them. And honestly, if people aren't willing to address their issues, because we all have them, then they're not a healthy person for you to be in any kind of relationship. You know, I would hope that when we meet people, for the most part, I get it, people sometimes get hurt, Danielle, but for the most part, let's approach relationships that we're going to leave that person better than where we met them.
Yes.
And I think for guys, that's not even something they're even thinking about. It's kind of like, how can you serve me? What purpose can you benefit me? Whether it's money, whether it's how far can I get with her sexually, or like, you know, maybe you're a placeholder until I go from this girl to that girl. And it's like, not objects, guys. I mean, we have emotions, we have feelings. And here's the thing, the right guy who is able to embrace all those emotions will see us blossom. Like we won't be nagging, we won't be difficult as you might think we're difficult when really we're just responding to how we're being treated. But
Mhm.
you'll see us really grow. And because of our growth, will help you to grow.
Oh, yes. I love that. But that has been very convicting to me, the ghosting and the breadcrumbing, because in getting back into the dating world, I am like, you know what? If you have no intentions with this man, you have to be very clear and very early on. And that's the only right way, as I've seen in Jesus's life. Like he was overly respectful and overly communicative, and he didn't use people, but that is one thing. And I don't like letting people down. I don't like making them feel like, oh, I don't want to be with you, but that is more kind than anything you can do for a person. So I have been very convicted in that, in Christian dating, because that is love.
Uh-huh. Oh, yeah, 100%. The next one is stonewalling. So stonewalling involves shutting down or refusing to communicate, often used to avoid uncomfortable topics, conflict
Hmm.
situations. And the early red flags would be giving the silent treatment
Hmm.
or responding with one word answers. And I think a lot of people don't really realize that ignoring someone intentionally, that is a form of emotional abuse. Physically withdrawing, such as walking away during a conversation, or deflecting or dismissing attempts to communicate or resolve issues. And that could very easily be someone expressing something to you and you turning it back on them and
Hmm.
not even really addressing what they're trying to share. Kind of like, can you please like these other pictures of like where, you know, they're not as form fitted. Like, I don't want you just to like me because of my
Hmm.
figure, and then being like, you have to deal with your past relationship type of thing. Um, this is how stonewalling can impact the person on the receiving end. It leaves them feeling invisible,
Hmm.
unheard, and frustrated, and often leading to feelings of isolation. I would even say it makes you feel rejected. And
Hmm.
just like this thick gut punch of just, oh, pain. Signs to watch for and look out for: sudden silence, leaving during arguments, or avoiding discussion altogether. And how this is harmful: it creates an emotional barrier and disrupts healthy communication. And this is how you can get through this is talk about the importance of setting expectations for communication. And I think that's really important. Like, what's your communication style? What's my communication style? How would you prefer for me to communicate? And this is kind of no different
Hmm.
than the love languages. Like, you're not supposed to love someone based from your love language, but you love them based on theirs. So if they need communication a certain way, communicate with them based on their communication style. And then it also says, and the need to address issues openly for a relationship to thrive. If you can't address an issue in a relationship and they immediately shut down, there is no relationship that's going to be happening. Like, they're just basically stopping it. And in regards to the person that we know,
Hmm.
when I would try to express something and very kindly, voice not raised, just talking like this, like, here, this is how I feel, I would get hung up on. Like, just completely hung
Hmm.
up on, to where it's like it kind of catches you off guard. You're like, do we lose a signal? Did the call just drop? Like, you literally are like, what just happened? Or even something as simple as, hey, I sent you this text. Did you see it? I've got to go. I'm sure I'll talk to you at some point. Click. Wait. And it's like, what just happened? Like,
Yeah.
completely shutting off conversation.
Oh,
When
yeah.
someone's saying, I don't have time for this. I don't have time to hash this out. And it's like, hash what out? We're like what conversation are you having? Because I'm trying to communicate something. Are you
Oh.
saying it's not safe to communicate things? And especially if you hear someone that says, no sorries with me. You can come and talk
Mhm.
to me about anything. Like, I am there for you no matter what. I won't leave you hanging. I will hear whatever you have to hear. Like, I'm it. Like, I'm the person. I'm your BFF for life. You are in my inner circle. You can come to me with whatever, and then you come to them with the smallest, simplest thing, and it's like click.
Mhm.
Like,
Mhm.
what just happened? It
Oh,
so much confusion.
and it crushes you because you experience a love on this earth that is just so different. Like, I do not want my daughters to feel like when something is hard that comes up, that they just run from it. Like, I want to provoke a confidence in engaging in relationship that is really like, we can engage in the hard things, we can talk about the hard things, and God is a God of real love, and what you're seeing from these men is like, okay, tap out when it gets hard, or um this is this is not what I want you to see of God's love, and this relationship that we are trying to form, or we are looking for on earth, is a relationship that mirrors our relationship with the Lord. Like,
Mhm.
I never ever want my daughter to see that that is what the Lord's love is like. Like, okay, it gets hard, I'm tapping out. Like, no, no, I want her to know a God that digs into, even, like, it is unconditional, it is we do, it is sometimes messy and hard, but I'm going to be there no matter what, and that's where all these manipulation tactics make it so messy, because I that's not how God's love is. It's beautiful, it's about redemption, and what we have experienced is not.
Right.
So how to cultivate that hope, like, their relationships are so much more than this,
Mhm.
and how do we show women that there is so much more that God has for them?
Yes. And I will even say about what I've learned with doing couples coaching. A lot of times the guys can have a really hard time dealing with the emotional aspect of intimacy.
Uh-huh.
And what I have found, and even with this
Mhm.
person in particular, was whether they felt they got love growing up, a
Mhm.
factor, past relationship wounds. But in this person's case, and I think this is really important and something that probably almost every guy has struggled with or been exposed to, is pornography.
Mhm.
And I know he was exposed as a young child. And so we're his brothers. And they kind of all were impacted by that differently. And I think that when you watch something like that, that will desensitize you to seeing
Mhm.
a woman having worth, to see
Mhm.
a woman through God's eyes. In regards to the pornography, I think what ends up happening is it creates further wounds in men,
Mhm.
where they look at us because they're completely desensitized. They
Mhm.
connect in with any type of intimacy, and they look at us as just sexual objects. And so when they're getting to know us, I think deep down they
Mhm.
might want to have that connection. I think deep
Mhm.
down they may really like desire that. But when push comes to shove, they can't do it. They can't go there because of,
Mhm.
this wound that hasn't been healed, that they
Mhm.
might not even think, Danielle, that there's an issue. Like, I'm fine, I'm good, whatever. And I will say, situation,
Mhm.
all tied to this, was a thing of this person could be completely all the feels, all the
Mhm.
emotional aspect. I mean, to where you're thinking, wow, like this is amazing. Like the softer side, the emotional side,
Mhm.
only when they had liquid courage in them.
Mhm.
Moment they didn't,
Mhm.
totally different person. And
Mhm.
I mean, it's sad, it broke my heart because while we would be having deep conversations
Mhm.
and they would say things like, I just want to wrap my arms around you, lift you up into my arms, give you a kiss on the forehead, and let you know that with everything that you've gone through, I think you're amazing. And that you don't have to worry about any guy. You don't even have to worry about me. And where I could share things and bring up, like, this is how I'm feeling about this. And they'd be like, okay, I'm going to hold my tongue. Okay, I can see why you feel that way based on what you've gone through in the past. But when there wouldn't be liquid courage, completely disconnected,
Yeah.
almost like a hardened heart. Like they couldn't get to that emotional aspect. And
Mhm.
heart is an addiction. And it's almost like to cope with that or to cope with the damage. I mean, I can't imagine being exposed to it at such a young age,
Mhm.
elementary school age. But to, go from that
Mhm.
to then other addictions that you might use as a coping mechanism that isn't a healthy one, but it's helping you to function, really reveals a much deeper issue of they
Mhm.
haven't healed. So because they haven't healed, they're not going to be emotionally available, which means they're not going to be emotionally safe. And
Mhm.
your emotions aren't really going to be safe with them. And it's so true. Hurt people, but they don't
Mhm.
have to. You can have hurt people that heal people. It's just
Mhm.
who's done the work. And I think a lot of guys are very quick to be like, that's not me. I don't
Mhm.
need that. I'm good. Like I'm successful. I'm accomplishing this. I'm accomplishing that. And they will say how much they desire. And this person did. They're like, I want my best friend. Like I can't tell you how much I want my best friends. I want my ride or die. I want someone that I
Yeah.
can be so open with. I tell the good, the bad, and all the ugly. But they really couldn't hold space.
Mhm.
It was too much for all of the deep stuff that would be that, or even hold space or be able to say,
Mhm.
we need to work on this. And it's like, mm-mm,
Yeah.
I'm checking out because it's really them checking out. They can't emotionally go there. And so to the men that have gone through this,
Mhm.
first of all, this isn't an attack. It's something I've observed. And it's we want you to be able to be the best version of yourself because your wounds, your wounded inner child is hurting us.
Yeah.
So you don't hurt us. We really
Yeah.
want you to get the healing that you need. And if that means us supporting you in your healing journey, we would be more than happy to do that. Um,
Mhm.
Especially if it's going to be you avoiding being hurt,
Mhm.
you know, throughout your life and then taking that hurt and hurting other people unintentionally or intentionally. I think a lot of times they don't realize the hurt that they're inflicting because they're so wounded, Danielle. I don't think they can see it.
Yes.
And
And
yeah, go.
what Oh, and you so empathize because no, like 5, 7-year old should be exposed to that at all. So you have that empathy. But when I have worked with women who are married to men that really do love Jesus, but have been exposed to porn at a young age, um, Doug Weiss is one of the pioneers into this term called intimacy in anorexia. So these men who have been exposed at such a young age don't really know how to be intimate on a heart level, and that is what we so desire more than the physical.
Mhm.
And they don't know how to do that. And so it almost is like, if you have been exposed at a young age, have had this addiction, you need to take a deep dive into that, or else you are going to bring that into your marriage. And I've worked with women who are spouses of pastors, or spouses of um, people who really, really do love Jesus, but have been addicted to porn at such a young age that they don't know what intimacy is. So that just that will put such a even though you desire intimacy, that you don't know how to do that when you are so desiring intimacy.
Mhm.
Like it is, eating disorders, anorexics are like, oh, I don't want to even look at food. I don't want to even go there. That's kind of like what these men experience. They're like, intimacy scares me because I've seen false intimacy my entire life.
Yeah, and I will even take that a step further of saying that when men see sex as love,
Hmm.
it speaks to the fact that one, they don't know how to love,
Hmm.
and two, they don't know how to be loved. There can be the most amazing, good woman that comes into their life. And if they don't know how to love and let her love them,
Hmm.
they're going to hurt her.
Hmm.
And that's what I saw happening in this situation was as much as I was being told, this is what I want, this is what I desire, they weren't able to do this. They weren't able to um, in their
Hmm.
words and actions carry out what they wanted. And so it didn't matter how open I was to being emotionally available or loving them, they couldn't receive it. And so it was rejected. And it was rejected in like through all these manipulation tactics and being unkind and being cruel. I didn't deserve that. Um,
Hmm.
but I think they're so wounded that they're just not in a good place to really be in a position to love anybody. And I think anybody that they try to is going to get hurt in the process. And
Hmm.
it's so sad. It's so sad because I truly believe that in relationships, you might not be 100% healed from things. There might be things when you're in marriage and a relationship, and it's like all of a sudden you get triggered and you're like, what just happened?
Hmm.
I thought I was
Hmm.
fine. And this is a wonderful opportunity where you can either help or hurt. You can
Hmm.
either take that baggage and help the other pick up their baggage and heal together, or you can trip over each other's baggage and it cause hurts and offenses and grievances. And I think too often, and the whole reason why divorce is so high, especially among Christians, it's higher than
Hmm.
non-Christians, is because they don't know how to do this.
Hmm.
I think so many people are giving up and they don't want to try. And I think women are more
Hmm.
so willing to try than men because
Hmm.
they then see it as a weakness. Like, I'm not succeeding. And I remember having a conversation. I said, please, when you say you're going to do something, do it. Well, I'm sorry I disappointed you again. I'm sorry I
Hmm.
failed you again. I said, I didn't say you disappointed me. I didn't say you failed me. This isn't an argument. It's just simply, can you please, for me to feel better and
Yes.
safer in this, can you please, if you say you're going to do something, do it. Show up.
Yeah.
You're saying you're a man of integrity. Be that.
Yes.
But they took it as a personal attack. And I think when men, even women, take things as a personal attack, it really reveals an area that they need to heal from.
Yes. Yes.
So, breadcrumbing.
Ugh.
It refers to leading someone on with small bits of attention or affection to keep them interested without committing.
Mm,
And
mm,
I'm kind of going back to this whole thing that I kind of shared a little bit earlier was trying to
mhm,
connect with this person and, getting a voicemail. Hey, baby. I just wanted to hear your voice. I guess I don't get to hear your voice. I'll try to call you tomorrow. Um, then calling back, getting on the phone, brief conversation. I mean, like
mhm.
5 minutes and be like, okay, like what's going on? And then be like, I'm going to call you. I'll call you back. Calling back might not happen right away. And it might be, I'll text you in the morning. I'll text you tonight. Again, you're making contact. I'm thinking we're still good. I have a voicemail message with you saying, hey, baby. I have a text saying, sweet dreams, sweets. I'll be like messaging you back. And I'm thinking, I'm really confused because this doesn't feel good, but
Yeah,
they're making contact, but it's breadcrumbing. It's
yes.
keeping you invested to where then you're like, hey, what about that phone call?
Mhm,
Hey, I haven't heard from you. Hey, what's going on? And then it's a thing of you send a text. Did you get
mhm,
that text? I've been so busy. And I'm like, okay,
mhm.
because again, you can be busy, but there's no way they're not getting a notification of seeing your text. There's
Yeah.
no way that there couldn't be a quick acknowledgement, Danielle, of a thumbs up or a like or something like I saw it. Like
Mhm,
it just that's so confusing. And to me, that's manipulation and mind games and messing with someone's head. And here's like the red flags of that sporadic messages that give hope,
mhm,
no follow through plans. I will text you tomorrow morning. No text.
mhm,
I will call you tonight. No call. And then you keep holding on for hope because then they're like, I'm going to do it tomorrow. And you're like, okay, I'm going to hear from them tomorrow. You have
mhm,
to like reach out. And it often shows up in text, but they're very vague or inconsistent, keeping things ambiguous, refusing to define
mhm,
the relationship or making commitments. And I will say, like, in this situation, there's a lot of mixed signals. I can't believe you're still single. I don't understand why you're not in a relationship. I was on a quest to meet a godly woman. I'm talking to one. But
mhm,
God's told me to take a step back, or you are the type of woman that I want to spend the rest of my life with you. I'm
mhm,
so in love with you. I love everything about you. And like, just so you know, like all the things. I love all the things about you. And I'm like,
mm.
confusing. Like, Danielle, that is so confusing.
Yes. Yes, and it weighs so much on your spirit because if you are fully invested in this person and they're not showing that they are fully invested in you, it just feels like where do we go from here? This is
Right.
I I want clarity and even like I truly believe and I've been convicted on this many levels, but um even watching like in The Chosen, Jesus saying to Barnabas, like, I can't heal you. I'm not going to heal you because this I I I want your hurt, um your what is going on in your life to be um just a testament to who I am. Like I truly feel like dating is so much you I really want I want us to know that like we cannot be clear enough. um I have had so many times where I'm overwhelmed in my life, but this lack of communication or this lack of I I can't do this. I
Mhm.
still want to have some communication, but I don't want this whole person. You
Mhm.
know, it is so unkind.
Oh,
And I want like I want women and men to know you cannot be in a relationship half-heartedly. And I've been very convicted of that in the past 5, 6 years I've been single. You that is not kind to the other person. So being clear and being a mature, emotionally mature and spiritually mature person is such a necessity that if you are not that person to them, if you like, I have some wonderful friends that I'm like, okay, I can't date you, I'm not in the place to pursue a relationship, but I really really value you
Mhm.
and the guidance and the wisdom you have.
Mhm.
I have some relationships with some widows, very emotionally intelligent people, but one thing they do not lack is communication. um, and that is what all of this breadcrumbing, stonewalling lacks. Like, I cannot be in a relationship with someone who does not just tell me their side and truly their side of what is going on with them. I don't want them to keep me around
Mhm.
because I'm accessible.
Mhm.
I really, like, a relationship is a relationship to, it is for good. It is for, it's an if it's not an edifying relationship, I do not want to be in it. So I think that is so beautiful that you are so bringing light to what is going on in these men that sometimes aren't emotionally and spiritually mature,
Mhm.
because it kills not only your self-confidence, but it really really hurts where we want to go as women.
Yeah.
It's very very deceiving and very very harmful and hurtful.
It cuts deep. And I would even say men who are not at a level of emotional or spiritual maturity, that are doing this type of stuff, you aren't ready to be in a position of leadership over
Mhm,
a woman in any way, shape, or form. But here's the impact that it has on the person on the receiving end of
mhm,
breadcrumbing is keeps them emotionally invested but unsure, often leading to confusion and prolonged emotional distress. And this is why I think it's so important. Like, I think men a lot of times think that their behavior and words and actions don't really impact us, or they don't care that it impacts us, or it's kind of like, well, I
mhm,
was able to easily let you go and you mean nothing to me now, so this will mean nothing to you. And it's a kind of a thing of, no, this can cause a lot of emotional distress. And I think not
mhm,
only that, but it impacts a woman mentally, emotionally, physically, and spiritually. It
mhm,
causes her to question what God's doing.
mhm,
Why another guy like this? But I mean, I will say over this process, I think it can cause people to lose weight. I've lost weight over stuff like this,
ugh,
just from the emotional distress, the stress of it, because it does wreak havoc on your nervous system. And that is just that harm, um, can just wreak havoc in so many other ways. Some of the signs to watch for is occasional messages, flirting, or vague
mhm,
plans to meet that never materialize. This is harmful because it keeps people in a state of limbo, which can be so painful.
mhm,
Wasting time and energy on a relationship that isn't progressing, but you keep
mhm,
making it seem like it is. That's how the men do it. And what to do if you're in this situation, recognize your own worth for the women and
mhm,
don't settle for inconsistent attention. Um, Again, setting clear boundaries, but also really having an idea of who you are and what you're worth, because this type of behavior will make you question your worth if you even have any. And I
mhm,
think that's one of the hardest things is
mhm,
might get a boost in your confidence from their love bombing, and then it's like a plummet when they do inconsistent things and you think, am I enough? What happens? Is it me? And then you sometimes can feel like, well, if I really was perfect, as I was told, so perfect, you will never not be perfect in my eyes. But then it's like, well, was I perfect? Was I
Mhm.
enough? Was I beautiful enough? And here it's not a reflection of us. It's really truly a reflection of their character, of their
Mhm.
of their hearts, of where their mindset is, of their own personal issues that they need to
Mhm.
address. It's not a reflection of us. The compliments that they gave us, even
Mhm.
if they said it with a motive to get something from us, to get our attention, whatever, it doesn't make it any less true. If they told you
Mhm.
you're beautiful, you're still beautiful regardless of what their behavior was.
Mhm.
You still have worth regardless of how they treated you. You're still amazing regardless of the things that they
Mhm.
said and did. So here's some additional tips for spotting red flags early on. Pay attention to patterns. That is so huge. Like, do that. Trust your gut. Some feels off, don't ignore it. In regards to paying attention to patterns, one-time occurrences may not be red flags, but repeated behaviors are worth noting. Set boundaries early. Clear boundaries can reveal whether someone respects you and your needs, and then seek others' outside perspectives, like talking to your friends, trusted advisors, even a counselor or therapist can provide clarity and validation. And then also the importance of boundaries, the importance of spotting any of these red flags, and the value of trusting intuition. Um, and then just listen to healthy mutual relationships where communication and respect are prioritized. Actually, look at observe other relationships and see what you like and see what you don't like. And then look at how the dynamic is. Like, is that overall healthy relationship? All relationships are going to have conflict, but overall, when I look at this relationship, is it healthy? Do they resolve conflict well? If they do, ask them like, what's your secret? What are you doing that maybe I should be doing? And then for those that aren't, that might have things that are like, oh, I don't like that, take note of that, so that if it happens in your relationship, because sometimes it's easier to see things from the outside looking in than it is to be on the inside, be like, ooh, I didn't like
Mhm.
that when this happened with this person and that person, and now this is happening here. This might be not a good relationship. um
Yes.
as we shared, like, it's hard to date
Yes.
in this day and age. It's hard to meet people who, so many people are saying they want this, they want that, they're for
Mhm.
relationships, and oftentimes we as women end up finding out that their words were meaningless.
Yeah.
That
Yes.
can be so disheartening because it also can make us want to put up all our walls and not let somebody else in. And I feel like it makes it harder for the next guy to
Mhm.
want to get to know us. But I think it also puts us at risk. And this is something I think is not often talked about. It puts us at risk of meeting someone like that again after
Mm.
we've been hurt. And they're
Yeah.
like, oh, if she fell for it once, she'll fall for it again.
Yes.
And, you know, I honestly think everybody should probably be in coaching or counseling because it would
Yeah.
make the world so much safer and better and healthier.
Yes.
But I think we just have to really be careful. And if you look through all these things, if you start to even notice for a second that there's love
Mhm.
bombing or anything, there's nothing wrong with saying, I feel like you're coming on too strong. I
Yeah.
would like to get to know you, but let's take it
Let's
a
slow
little
this down.
slower. Yeah. And if by slower they fall away, then
Mhm.
they didn't have good intentions and you just called them out on it. Not ignoring those red flags and just really being aware of things.
Yeah.
Let's take it a step further and really discuss a little bit more
Mhm.
how it impacts us when men act this way, behave badly.
Yes.
And and the impact it really has on us. You know, what would you like to add to that?
Oh.
Just as a message to men so they better understand the impact of their words and their actions.
Mhm. Well, first of all, for women, that is why it's so important to have these trusted women in your life. I've never um I've never clung to my wise women more than I have in the dating years, because I know that they're a third party that can see the outside looking in, what my heart, like, obviously we just so love, I mean, we are, you and I are such feelers, and that's a gift. That is such a gift, and I never want it to not look like a gift, because it is. We feel to the nth degree, like, we know God is so much more, his plans are so much more than what we've experienced on this earth, and he is so much better than what we have experienced. I think it's so sweet to have trusted women to talk to, first of all, and second of all, um, to to have your village, but also to know who God is, and who God says we are. I think in the last 5 years of having to be reintroduced into the dating world, I'm like, ah, wow, I have to learn this, because if I don't know who God is and who God says we are, um, that we don't have a basis of where we're going from.
Yeah.
But yes, it is so beautiful to know that God says we are so worth going to the nth degree. We are so valued, and we are so, like, if you just look at Isaac and Rebecca's relationship in the Bible, he worked 14 years for that woman, 7 years for Leah, whose father-in-law deceived him to marry, and then another 7 years for Rebecca. And I think that is so beautiful, because we get to see how men pursued women then, and we get to see that that's not so out of the blue, like, that effort is not like extra, like, this is how God made relationship. He is the way he defines love in Corinthians 13, or how he describes a virtuous woman in Proverbs 31. That is beautiful, and we ought to embody that. And I feel like, because of our wounds, we're like, okay, well, dampen that light, or that beauty, or that hope. But I really, really feel like and even talking about this, we know that there is so much more that God designs out of a relationship than what we are experiencing seeing in relationship.
Yep. And I love that. I was thinking about that with Jacob, Rachel, and Leah, and how
That's what I meant.
fine, and how, they weren't going around bathing suits. She wasn't, wearing
Yes.
that showed skin. And he's getting to know her heart, her mind, her character. And she was so worth it to him that he was willing to work
Yes.
14 years to be able to
Mhm.
make her his wife. And no different than, I think, also Boaz and Ruth. I mean, he was her kinsman redeemer. And because of her love and dedication to Naomi, he fell in love with her. He also wanted to protect her. He wanted to make sure she was safe. I mean, when she would be out in the fields, he made it very clear no one is to touch her. Like, she
Mhm.
had his protection before she was even his. And I think this is really important. A lot of times men won't protect women until you're theirs. And it's
Mhm.
so easy for, I think, men to say, call you love, to call you my baby, to call you theirs. But they're not doing anything to make you theirs. They're not
Mhm.
doing anything to honor you and recognize you as, yeah, like you're worth someone having. It doesn't mean you're not worth having. They can't see your value. And I think that's when we throw our pearls before swine, which what that scripture talks about is you're basically giving something of value to someone that doesn't acknowledge its worth.
Mhm.
And I think in this situation of who we know and anyone else kind of tied to him in the story, that's what I did. I was misled. I thought that they were someone so different. I thought that their feelings and intentions were genuine and they weren't. And so I thought I was giving my pearls to someone worthy. And then I realized they weren't. And so I think that's so important, but that starts with your identity being in God and
Mhm.
knowing your worth. Like you have to know your worth and walk in your worth. And I think we've
Mhm.
had stories in the Bible where charm and sex has come into play and it's been like awful, horrible results. David and Bathsheba, him
Mhm.
being sexually attracted to her and watching her bathe resulted
Mhm.
in killing someone, having an
Mhm.
affair, and I'm not even sure all the dynamics of that. I mean, I've looked at scripture and I'm like, she had to go see him. Did she really even have a choice in seeing him? He's the king. And then they had a
Mhm.
child, and that child, because of their consequence, that they lost that child. Love is not sex. Sex is not love. It is important to do it the right way. And I think
Yes.
for us as women, no one really talks about the pressure to
Mhm.
compromise. And there's so
Mhm.
much pressure to compromise. And I will say, when you have someone who is telling you everything you want to hear and is
Mhm.
making you feel seen, heard, and validated, and making you feel like you are the most beautiful person in the world,
Mhm.
and you haven't felt that by anybody else. And,
Mhm.
you know, taking in consideration anything that you might have had in your past. And I know in my past, I am a victim survivor of domestic and sexual violence. And so it's really important to me that someone doesn't see me that way. And so
Yeah.
to accept that, to basically be like, I want to protect you. I want to just wrap you in my arms and hold you and let you know it's okay. Like, after something like that, you need that reassurance that someone is safe, that you are safe with someone. And
Mhm.
it can be really easy to fall into they care about me
They care.
based on these words that they must really care, based on these words that you're the person I want to spend the rest of my life with. They must feel that way. When they're using love, they must have some type of love for you. When they're calling you their baby, you must be. And you're probably like, that's how they feel about you and no one else. It can be very easy to think of falling in with the feelings and
Mhm.
thinking of relationships that could leave you compromising. And it could be something as simple as talking about compromising. It could be something as simple as talking about a relationship, or it could be something where you're actually going through with that. And I think in society, there's so much emphasis on us being at fault.
Mhm.
What was she wearing? Men can control their urges, but it all falls on women. And I kind of talked about this in the another episode of the Church 2 part 2 of stop putting men's self-control on women.
Mhm.
Stop saying, well, if she wasn't dressed like that, the guy wouldn't stumble. If she wasn't, flirting with him, he
Mm,
wouldn't be drawn to her. Like, no, we all have our own things. But I would also say,
mm,
men, stop using charm. That's just
mhm,
going to cause harm. Stop using what we desperately need and desire to hear to try to get us to compromise, to try to get what you want from us, because it's a level of evilness. You're using such deception and manipulation, and you're putting us at risk. You're doing harm to us, and under fraud. You're advertising and acting like you care and love us when you don't. And I heard years ago that men will say, I love you to go to bed. And women will
yeah.
go to bed to say, I love you. And again, I think this is something that isn't often talked about, how powerful it is to feel loved, how powerful it is to feel desired and wanted.
Mhm,
And it can fill that void.
mhm,
But it can be a very slippery slope. And I think for anyone that's claiming to be men of God, you need to be protecting us and loving us like Christ loved the church. And God, Jesus, would never compromise. Our reputation would never compromise and jeopardize our hearts. And you need to
mm,
fall in line with Jesus. And for those that aren't Christian, or those that say, I'm a Christian
mhm,
and might not be, um, think about it this way. If you have a daughter, you
mhm,
have a sister, a mom, a niece, a friend,
mhm,
how would you want someone to treat them?
mhm,
Are you treating women how you would want them to be treated? Because that's the problem.
mhm,
They think it doesn't matter how they treat women, but the thing is when men keep treating women the same way, eventually it's going to impact and happen to your niece, your daughter, your mom, your sister, your wife, all these things. And it stops with you. Like, stop using your smooth, sexy voice that's just like makes a woman melt. Like, stop using that stuff.
yeah.
Try to us to, compromise or whatnot. Like, really take that in consideration and see what
Yeah.
what part you're playing, and the damage that you're doing, not just to our heart,
Uh-huh.
self-worth, but and then here's the thing, you don't want a woman that has all this emotional baggage from relationships. Well, neither does the next man. So you guys aren't helping each other. If you guys want to be like, I don't want a woman to have gone through this, because that would really suck, and then I'm gonna have to help heal her, and then
Yeah.
also just the fact of now she's been hurt by so many people and this hurts me, then work with these men and stop doing it. Like, it's comes down to you guys, because it causes so much havoc on us.
Uh-huh.
I mean,
And
it's
uh, it is so very, very true. And I love your perspective, Whitley. Um, like I so often think in going into future relationships, I so see God's love in the Bible, like the woman at the well.
mm,
He so saw that she was so desperate for love. And I think both men and women truly long for love.
mhm,
And we know what it feels like.
mhm,
And what he did, he was like, I see you, I know you, and I still love you. And I think his love is so, so, so powerful that a man's love, honestly, it feels like that doesn't hold a mirror to God's love. But what we really, really so see and desire is like, hey, I can behold you, and I see you and I want you and you are beautiful to me, and just because I made you, not because of all the things you did, not because of what you've done to yourself. Like, I love you because you are mine. And that is so important for us as women, as people, because I really, really, really do feel like God loves us like that. And God has made men capable of loving us like that. Like, not because of who we are to them, but who we are as as women of God.
Yeah, and I would even, for the men, for those that have been impacted by pornography or think it's just a casual, everyday, no big deal,
Hmm.
clubs or, whatever. Um, think about it this way. If you are truly yearning for that person to be your be all end all person, not above God, but just your person here on earth, that when you're having a tough day, they're there. You guys can be hang out in sweatpants and, have time in, like, for me, I feel like women need a soft place to land in a guy, but men do too. And if you want us to show up and be that person where you can cry and you can be
Hmm.
completely all walls down, all the layers coming down, and be fully naked, not physically, but like
Hmm.
emotionally naked, and you're accepted, and where we look at you and say, you crying and showing emotion is hot as heck. Like, it is so attractive, and we actually like think you're even stronger because of that. You're not going to be finding that when you're treating us like a commodity of something interchangeable and you're going for quick temptation type things of feelings. I'm going
Hmm.
to watch porn, or I'm going to go to the strip club, or I'm going to go to this. I'm going to go from woman to woman to woman.
Hmm.
And, someone said it's like tape, sex. The more people you sleep with, the less it's going to be sticky. And for men to
Hmm.
feel connection, they have to be able to bond. If you've had sex with everyone and whatever, you're not going to be able to bond. That's going to impact that. And you're not going to see women as these amazing beings that God created them to be, which is, we are everything. Like,
Hmm.
you give us the house, we'll make it a home.
Hmm.
You give us money, and we'll double it. You give us a sperm, we'll make a baby. This
Hmm.
is your legacy. Like, we are giving you your legacy. Whatever you give us, we are going to take it and multiply. And that's what Proverbs 31 is all
Hmm.
about. Like, she's going around the house, she's doing this, she's doing that. And when you come home from work, we will be that person that you need to be. And
Hmm.
the romance and the sexuality of intimacy will be so much more greater when everybody is all in every aspect. But if
Hmm.
you're going around and you're seeking validation or quick fixes, or just you're wanting the feeling to feel powerful, and you're using porn and strip clubs and all this other stuff, and womenizing them, to do that, you're not going to be able to experience this. And
Yeah.
we're not going to be able to safely show up and give you this, because we're not meant to be in competition with society standards or
Yes.
strip clubs or porn. We are not those images. And when you treat us like that's all we are, is assets, or, something to do whatever you want with, you're really cheapening us. You're cheapening God's gift, and you're not really able to see its value. And because of that, you're not going to ever be able to fully experience it. Like,
Yeah.
you will always be missing out. You will always need the next thing, because what you get in that moment won't be enough. You won't be content. It won't be satisfied. When you can have an amazing
Hmm.
biblical sexual relationship with your spouse, where like it's almost insatiable, because like you can't get enough. It's not that it's not enough, but it's so amazing and blessed by God
Hmm.
that you just keep wanting it. And
Yes.
women want that too. We want to be wanted and desired, but we also need and want to know we're not just that. Like
Mm-hmm.
that's the icing on the cake.
Mm-hmm.
And we will be more than willing to be that if all these other things are being met. Emotional connection is so, so, so important. And I've seen so many psychologists and therapists refer to as emotional foreplay is so important for a woman to want to do that, to want
Mm-hmm.
to be able to be there and show up in all those ways. And so it takes two people to really fully be able to embrace all of that. And I think because of the wounds that men are going through,
Mm-hmm.
some of them may never, will never experience that. And so I just want to ask the men out there, what do you truly want? Because if you
Mm-hmm.
truly want that depth, that intimacy, you need to let go of some addictions and get the healing that you need to be
Mm-hmm.
able to experience that.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and that is beautiful to hear you say that because one of the books that has changed my heart so much or enabled me to behold the beauty of a woman that God created is Captivating or Captivated by Stacey Eldridge. And it is so beautiful to know that we are the crown of creation. Like we are the last thing to be created.
Mm-hmm.
And if we don't see that beauty, and if men are doesn't see that value and that beauty, then that is big a big thing.
Mm-hmm.
But to see that and to behold that is such a gift.
Yeah.
um, and I think you've done a really good job of depicting like these are the things that really that can cloud your vision. But let's see God's vision of a woman. Let's see God's vision of a man, a real man,
Yeah.
and who he is created to be. So I love your work in this because it is so important for man and woman to see who they were created to be from the beginning of time.
Yes. And I think true masculinity is not how many conquests have you had? It's not
Mm,
about power and control. It's really being able to show up and
mm,
allowing a woman's femininity to flourish as defined by the Bible. And here's, I think, what's so important is a lot of guys will be like, I'm a leader and you're
mhm,
going to submit to me. And it's like, ooh, no, no, no. That's not how that works. You can't just say you're a leader and women will submit. There's a certain biblical steps in that, and that you have to show up as this masculine biblical man where you're willing to lay down your life for her, where you're providing, where you're doing all these, and it's providing a safe space for her to
mhm,
really show up safely. And too many men have this ego trip where they're like, serve me. Like,
mhm,
you're going to serve me. And it's like, no, that's not creating a place where we can flourish and really step into being a feminine. And this is, I think, where a lot of times then we end up stepping, not intentionally, into the masculinity. And
mhm,
like, oh, like you're not texting, you're not doing this, you're not calling, now I'm texting, now I'm calling. And we don't want to be in this situation, but you're also not leading as men and you're not following through. And
mhm,
actually, when you say I've got you really got them. You're not just saying words. Like saying words doesn't make you a masculine man. You can say you're an
mhm,
alpha man and all that. It's not saying the words, it's actually words and actions aligning. Like, I've got you. What do you need?
mhm,
You need to do this? Do you need to come sit with me and us? I'll just hold you. Do you need to, lean into me and like I be that support? Do you need comforted right now? What do you need, baby? What do you need? Like that's when you use the baby, not just flippantly to any woman that
mhm,
you're interested in. It should be special. And
mhm.
but we need men to really be reevaluating what masculinity really is. And are you following masculinity based on society, based on God? And if you're following what is on God, there's going to be a lot of people that are going to get quite a reality check of, oh, I'm not really a masculine man. Not like I should be. I can be a man, but you're not working and walking in your masculinity like you should for us to show up. And I think that's also an issue is we can't follow you unless you're leading according to scripture. And I can't tell you, Danielle, how many guys, whether it's coaching, whether it's guys I've met, and I'm talking about guys that are even therapists and coaches that I've met that are business owners, whatever, they could have the most masculine job ever and they're not leading, but they'll tell you all day long, oh, I'm a leader. Oh, I'm an alpha male. Oh, yeah, no, baby, I got you. I got you. And it's like, no, you don't got anything. Like, you
Mm-hmm.
have a lot of lies, a lot of misleading, a lot of games. And playing games isn't being a masculine man. It's, all right, I'm going to give you clarity. This is exactly where I stand. You will never have to second guess that. You will never have to question that. I will let you know right now, this is what's going on, and be like, okay,
Uh-huh.
then you can trust that person. Then you can be like, all right, you're leading, you're doing this. And
Uh-huh.
to really rise up and do that. And they're not. And whether you're Christian or not Christian, this applies to you because masculinity isn't just whether or not you're Christian. It's like
Yeah.
if you want to be walking in as a masculine man, you need to be making changes. And um, you know,
Yeah.
sad when you see men who love their kids more than women,
Yeah.
even
Yeah.
more than the mom. And
Yes.
it's like, oh, this child's my number one. And it's like,
Yeah.
what about the mom? What about the mother of your children? Whether you're married, whether you're divorced, like there's a certain hierarchy, and it's God, spouse, children, and then everything else. And so if you're putting so much emphasis on loving your children more than you love your spouse, that is a huge issue because your first ministry is marriage, and it
Yeah.
is the foundation of what's going to determine um,
Uh-huh.
how your children see things and relationships in life. And if you don't get that right,
Mm-hmm.
they're going to deal with things. And it's no different than a pastor. I mean, it's very clear that a pastor really can't be pastoring if he doesn't have his household in order. That is his first ministry, not pastoring. It is God, his wife, and then children.
Right.
And so making sure that's done, but it just blows my mind how many people in their 30s, 40s, 50s are men who are still playing games. They are set in their ways and they want a woman to change. They want a woman to be this, a woman to be that. They,
Yeah.
they won't even take a look at themselves to think, what am I bringing to the table? What do
Yeah.
I need to change so that she can be this that I want her to be? Like what do I need to like work on? And they won't do that. And it's
Mm-hmm.
causing so much harm, so much harm. And this isn't a bash on men. If anything, I would hope that men would hear this and be like, as women, our hearts are to make sure that people are healed and whole and restored. And this is what we're observing. And as women who are, unmarried, this is
Mm-hmm.
what we're seeing the need is. This is what we're seeing the issue is. And we're hoping that you're going to hear our hearts and be like, ooh,
Yes. Yes. And I do think you could so see that. Two things by their perspective and by their fruit. Their perspective, if it's like, the world is out to get me, I'm like, come on. Like I can cultivate my brain, my perspective every single morning with Jesus, that I know that this world is my perspective is not, no, not everyone is out to get me. I control my narrative. I really, really, the perspective that I live in is that God is good. He is a God of redemption and of beauty. And there is beauty to come on this earth. So when you see the world through a lens of destruction and doom, like that is a red flag for sure. And the perspective in which they understand their own story, that is a big thing. And second, is the fruit in their life. Like you can see a man by the fruit that he not only is saying from his mouth, but is you see the fruit in his relationships, in his church involvement. But perspective and fruit is so big
Yeah.
in my discernment of men in dating relationships.
Yeah, 100%. And I will say also, which just came to mind, disrespect.
Yeah.
The moment a man disrespects you, even in joking,
Mhm.
he disrespects you. Um, just
Yeah.
know that there's going to be more disrespect, and it could be something as simple as him referring to women in an inappropriate way, whether he's calling them a slang term, whether he, does he throw around a lot of words to describe you in a negative way, even if it's a joke.
Mhm.
If anything, I have found in the coaching, and even as a victim advocate for legislative reform, it usually starts out with words. And I'm not saying this is with every guy, but usually it starts out with words. And those words can then go to different things. Not only are they disrespecting with their words, but they're disrespecting with their actions. And what I have found to be a commonality is people who have engaged in porn or go to strip clubs, spend time there. They always will use words like SLUT
Mhm.
or inappropriate words to describe women's body parts, which is demeaning, dehumanizing, degrading, and disrespectful. And it lets you know where their mentality is. They can say that they respect you, but they're using those words. They don't respect any women. And what I've seen in men who commit heinous crimes, physical, sexual abuse, violence, assault, they also use those same words. And
Mm.
ask yourself as men, do you want to be put in the company in the same group of people who take those words and then those words become actions towards women? Because it's speech towards women when you're calling a woman a hoe, slut, whatever you're calling her. Um, those are hateful words. Um, is your words uplifting and edifying? Or is your words attacking and tearing down and creating hate? That's not love. That's not love at all. And, I have found, and I think we kind of touched on this a little bit in the beginning, of you can put Christian men and non-Christian men in the same room, and sometimes you don't know the difference because they'll be talking about body parts in the most graphic way, but using terms that aren't appropriate. And, we want to be treated with respect. And that doesn't respect us. And it basically shows that there's a lack of control on how you say things, what you say, how you view women. But it's almost kind of a hateful thing towards women. And, there's the proper medical terminology for our body parts, which please use those. But the other terminology that you might see in a porn video shouldn't be used to describe women ever. And we might see it in lyrics and movies and songs, but that doesn't mean it's justifiable to use them towards women. It really shows that you have no respect for women. And no matter how much someone might be like, baby this or baby that, and I think this is where we kind of get into a difficult situation, Danielle. you can have someone saying those words in conversation with you, and then them making you feel like you're the most seen woman in the world, the most beautiful woman in the world, by saying you're
Mm-hmm.
effing beautiful, or you're this, or you're that, you're gorgeous, you're this. But
Mm-hmm.
even though this feels good,
Mm-hmm.
this is how they really see women.
Mm-hmm.
And
That means nothing.
it means nothing. It really means nothing. And do you really want to be associated with someone who refers to women in this way, even if they're making you feel like the most beautiful woman in the world, like you're the most understood woman? Because at the end of the day, their words and actions don't align.
Mm-hmm.
And let's just
Mm.
speak to what it is usually the part that doesn't align is usually where their heart and mind really is. Because anybody's going to charm you, and anybody's going to tell you you're beautiful, and anyone's going to make you feel like you are the most amazing woman. But what are they saying
Yeah.
overall that we really need to be paying attention to and being like, oh,
Oh.
I don't want to associate
Mm-hmm.
someone who refers to women this way. And I will say, in those conversations I was having, that's what was happening. And that was really hard. And
Yeah.
I think, again, it can really meet a need in our heart to be told that we're amazing, that we are, we're all the things. We're, perfect. We're this, we're that.
Yeah.
But those other words really cheapen it, and give those words new meaning, no weight.
And that's where it's so destructive because you are so we're women are wise. They see what you see them as. So we are like, oh, I feel like this to you. I see myself as this to you because you're seeing me as that.
Yeah.
And until you break that relationship off, I'm like unable to like I can't disassociate myself with that identity because that is the power of their words. That's the power. Like that is why it's so important to be yoked with a man who just sees you and loves you like Jesus does, because you do take on that, the worth and the words and the identity of this man that is just putting it on you.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And I think this is really important. Kind of what you said is, you may be told you're perfect and beautiful and all that stuff, but
Yeah.
eventually those words that he's using to describe other women, he's going to use to describe you.
Mm-hmm.
Well, mixing it in with you're beautiful, you're this, you're that. And we're daughters of the King.
Mm-hmm.
We are princesses of God, the Father. Those
Mm-hmm.
words don't describe us. Those
Mm-hmm.
words aren't ever supposed to be used to describe us. And so that's really important, that if a man's going to describe you and treat you in a way that God wouldn't treat you or describe you, that's not a man you should have anything to do with.
Mm. Yes.
And because that's less than what the Father would want for you. It's not his best. It's kind of,
Uh-huh.
it's a frog. It's not your prince. And
Uh-huh.
I think, again, sometimes we can be so desperate for that connection, and we long for it so much that when we're getting scraps, just
Uh-huh.
as um it can feel like a
Yes.
filet mignon. But
Uh-huh.
really, what is it's just the fat and the scraps of a filet mignon. It is not the filet mignon. And so really knowing, and this will be hard because it's like, whoa, if he goes away, what
that say about us?
Yeah, like now I'm gonna be grieving this, then now what? But that's when you really need to be strong and
Mhm.
you need to realize whether someone's in your life or not, you still deserve better. And removing them and not being in that relationship with them, though that might be hard, is the best thing. And being in that season of waiting than to be with the wrong person who is going to abuse you with their words and
Mhm.
be very destructive and damaging to your heart and your soul, and
Mhm.
going to mistreat you and treat you with disrespect. It's not worth it.
Mhm.
And so you have to walk away.
And that's why I love, so I'm a counselor nurse at a middle school, high school, at a Christian school around here in Atlanta. And we understand that as women in our 30s, but I can't imagine if I was a woman just trying to understand what men were like, what love was like as a middle school and high school age. We really like, we cling on to that.
Yeah.
So I think that is where education and identity formation is so important, because as middle school and high schoolers, our daughters, this age demographic of women, are really going to see like, oh, who do you say I am? And it is not what these men say. It is what Jesus says. And if we live out of that identity, then we can see the truth, what we are to see going into these relationships.
Yep.
And
Yeah, and it can
I
be so
love that.
yeah, and it can be so easy to get caught up in that, especially when you're so wanting that validation.
Yes.
That want can sometimes become this desperate need, this cry of your heart to, I want to be seen, I
Hmm.
want to be visible, I want to be um
Important.
yeah.
Sure.
And they do make you feel important, and that's the hard thing, is they make you feel like you're the most important person. And
Mhm.
I think that's how they can get away with that, because our emotions, they're disconnected, but our emotions are
Real.
they're real. And we're like, oh my gosh, like so amazing. And um, I can tell you the conversations that I've had as I've thought back over them. Um, again, healing balm to my soul, to my heart. It really spoke to me, and it was healing in a way, but now there was then more things to heal from, because then the hurt that they caused
Mhm.
um, was more that needed to be healed upon what already was healing. It didn't help, it hurt.
Mhm.
And again, I think it would be really important and good if men said, this is all I can offer,
Mhm.
and I don't want any type of commitment, and I'm not really interested in you except for X, Y, and Z.
Mm.
I put it out there. And then you can say, all right, well, I'm not into, I don't want X, Y, and Z. And I'm not wanting someone that's just going to waste my time and drag my heart through the mud. So I wish you all the best. And
Mhm.
then we could go on our merry way. But men don't do that. Because I think, again, it's kind of like climbing the mountain. It's like we're the mountaintop, and they're going to stay and do whatever they can to get to that mountaintop. And I think this is really important, learning not to be so accessible to men.
Mm.
Not everyone gets to have access to you.
Yes.
Not everyone gets to talk to you. It's not you know, ego. It's you are the daughter of the king, and not everyone gets to be within your inner circle. A lot of people are going to want to be in your inner circle. They don't all belong in your inner circle. And so limiting that access,
Mhm.
the moment something happens, like, oh, you said that, Yeah, I'm not okay with men that call women that. Um, this is beneath me. I have too much respect for myself to do that. Like
Mm-hmm.
being able to say that and have those hard conversations, which I know can be so hard, because you don't know how they're going to react, and they might not be very kind with how they react. But it will also send a message to them of, ooh, someone spoke up, someone called me out, and you have no idea how that might impact how they speak to a woman again. They might be like, ooh, I can't get that pass. I'm not able to, that's not going to fly. But you're also setting yourself apart, which is what we're called to do. We're supposed to be in the world, but not of the world. And we're not supposed to be like all the other people. We're supposed to be different. And so, really limiting who has access to us, um, really is us saying, we know what we're worth.
Mm-hmm. And that seems so contradicting to what we grew up with
So
because,
predicting.
oh, being a people pleaser, I'm like, okay, whatever you ask of me, I can do it.
Yeah.
But I learned that is not always the holy and right thing to do.
Yeah.
I, you, Jesus did not give access to himself all the time. He had to withdraw. He had to have boundaries. He did have boundaries,
Mm-hmm.
which I learned very later in life, but it's such a beautiful thing to learn that as women.
And so I think we need to, rather than we need to think the best of situations or think the best of guys and their intentions, think the best of ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
We deserve better. It's okay to say that. We deserve better than this being true. We're not full of ourselves. We don't have an ego. Like, would God want me to be treated this way? And
Mm-hmm.
really do a heart search. Really look at that. You're probably gonna say, nope, he would not want us to be treated this way. And yeah, it might cause you to have an uncomfortable conversation, a hard conversation, and you might be torn because you might care for this person and you have to say, I don't like the way you've treated me and I deserve better. And so I'm walking away. And it might not be well received. And you still might have to do that.
Yes.
Because getting and aligning with the wrong person will impact your life, everything. And
Yeah.
so really wanting to make sure you're focused on the path God has us on, path God has you on, and your purpose would be making sure you're not derailed by
Mm-hmm.
and
It's
by counterfeits and by people who really aren't going to be part of the process to you following your purpose and fulfilling God's plan for your life.
oh, and it's so worth it just to, and even just I love that the whole premise of your podcast is living with purpose. And I do think all of our relationships are like, this is not for fun. This is for a purpose. And we love, like women, we love, and we don't want to just be here just for fun. Um, we do want to enjoy a partner for life,
Yeah.
but we know that there's so much um beauty, not only spiritually, emotionally, physically. I think what you are depicting right now is something that is so beautiful. And I don't think a lot of people at this stage of singleness have that hope, and that hope that there is intimacy and real beauty in relationships that is to come. And I think that's why I love listening to your podcast so much, because it is so awesome to just see a hope that this superficial stuff that we see it is not what we are meant to dwell in. We are created for something so much more and so much more beautiful,
Yeah.
and lasting than this superficial toxicity
Oh my
that
God.
we encounter.
Yeah. Yeah. And I will also say to those that may have stumbled and in the moments of temptation didn't truly see your worth, that does not change the fact that you're still the daughter of a king. Like your placement as a princess, a heavenly princess, a royal princess with God doesn't change. Don't let anybody tell you your worth's been impacted because they're wrong. It's not. And it speaks very clearly in scripture that we are worth more than rubies. We are worth more than gemstones. It does not say you are worth more than gemstones only if you do this.
Mhm,
And only if you do that. No, not at all.
mhm.
And so I want everyone to put their crown back on, straighten it when it gets a little crooked, help encourage other people, other sisters in Christ. I love this because two believers being able to come in and openly talk about something that's not really being talked about, but you have no less worth. And
Mm,
God knows. He knows the desires of your heart. He knows how easy it is to be overcome by temptation because you so desperately are yearning for a voice.
mhm,
But he also knows that that's not you, and that's not going to define you. It doesn't have to determine your purpose. God uses those people that
mhm,
have the blemished, you know, difficult past. There hasn't been a single person he used that didn't have something going on. I mean, even Boaz's mother, she was a prostitute.
mm,
And that's who, then David and then Jesus came through the lineage of someone who was a prostitute. And then Boaz married a widow.
uh-huh,
Oftentimes I feel like in our society, we talk negatively about people who have been divorced or who have been married before, but look at what God did,
mm,
and he was very instrumental in doing that, because though Jesus was birthed and born from a virgin, and that's amazing, and it had to happen that way to show proof of it couldn't have been anybody else but God.
uh-huh,
But the lineage he came through was that of a prostitute. Like,
mm,
no one can say God can't redeem and restore someone's past.
uh-huh. Amen.
It doesn't speak to your destiny. It doesn't speak to your worth. It
Mm,
just speaks to the fact that we're all fallen and sinful people.
mhm.
Our flesh sometimes wins out, but allow God to forgive you, allow God to heal that, and even have the courage to forgive yourself.
Yes.
So,
I love your encouragement. I love to be reminded of that. And even the concept of because usually when I get to hear, I listen to a lot of podcasts on what toxic relationships entail and how to spot them. And I feel sometimes so disheartened, but I truly believe your message and the Lord's message is like, you do not know how good my love is. And I show that and I give you my love freely. And to know of my love is something that will change you forever. And I do think even people that don't know Jesus, that if they were in to encounter God's love, they would be like, oh, I am such a believer in love in itself. Like, we get so weary being 30s and 40s in the single and the dating world. And oh, it's so beautiful not to see the world, but to just look at his depiction of love. And it's like, okay, God, I can do this. I can behold your love if this is what love is. So teach me who you are, teach me what love is. And I really do think that's why you and I love to talk. Like, we have such a hope that love is so beautiful and love is so good. And we enjoy talking about that because it is so much more beautiful, even though this toxicity and this manipulation and this gaslighting is so ugly. We have this hope and a beauty and a love that is so much better than we could ever imagine on this earth.
Yeah.
And that's what is so beautiful about us talking. Like, we do know what love is. And that is what we're like, don't fall into this false love. Like, I can show you what real love is. And it is more beautiful and more breathtaking and set your soul on fire more than anything we've ever encountered on this earth. So that's why I love getting to talk with you, because like, I think you just behold that love. You understand his love so, so, so well. And I love seeing like the perspective of his love through you.
Thank you so much. I so appreciate that. And I think just for a reminder to those of like, what is love? Love is patient.
Hmm.
Love is kind. Love does not boast. It rejoices in the truth. Love is there's self-control. I know I'm missing some of them.
There's so much.
And I'm like, what all before I misquote scripture, what are I'm like looking it up because I feel like yeah, I feel like I'm doing love is patient. Um,
Oh,
but like
take no record of wrongs.
yes,
Like,
it keeps no
it,
record of wrongs. It keeps no record of wrongs. Love is patient, love is kind, love does not envy or boast. It is not arrogant or
Mhm.
rude. It does not insist on its own way. It's not irritable or resentful. It does not rejoice at wrongdoing, but rejoices with the truth. Love bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, endures all things. Love never ends. And that's the thing. Is he leading you to the church or the bedroom?
Mhm.
And um, I think that's a really clear indication. Sometimes we overlook, sometimes we don't want to acknowledge that was where his motives are. And I will say, the guy that we've talked about, the moment I said, we are not having sex, was pretty much the moment he did this 180-degree turn.
Mhm.
Uh, though very much love bombing, all this stuff, breadcrumbing. Um, and I think, that's a very tell sign of what someone's intentions are, no matter how much they say, I'm a Christian, I'm a believer, I'm a man of God. And I'm not saying that I know that there are men and women of God out there that are engaging in sex, whatever, in relationships outside of marriage. I'm not saying they're not Christians, but they're not following what God wants us to follow. In a lot of ways, that's in place to protect us, help
Uh-huh.
protect and guard our hearts from emotional harm
Mm.
that we then have to work through, that can be distracting, that can cause us to be dysfunctional, um, cause us to shut down. It also can protect us from other things like STDs. I think that there's so many things, plus soul ties. I don't think people talk enough about soul ties and how you, whether it's love or not, or it's just casual sex, there's still a bond that's created. And that bond and even
Mhm.
comparison of that person can be taken into your marriage. When a relationship is formed on the basis of sex and sex alone or physical chemistry, it's going to fail. Especially when, if you think of a 24-hour day, 8 hours of sleeping, them working, all these different things, there are so many other 99% of things that are happening that don't involve sex. And so it's not focused on the right foundation.
Mm.
Sex blessed by God, it's just the most incredible thing, but it's not the thing. Again, it's the icing on top of the cake. And when you have a deep friendship and that emotional connection, that spiritual connection, it's going to make that experience, it's going to heighten it. It's going to make it so much more incredible. But you need to have all these other things. And anybody that's doing it the opposite way, you're not going to really be able to fully experience that gift. And again, it's a protection of our hearts, of our minds, and of our bodies, of so many things that we could be exposed to. So I think that's
Mm.
really important to point out. But anything final thoughts that you have, Danielle, before we close?
Oh, I just so love getting to talk with you. And I think it's so beautiful to get to just wade through this. But I think our sweet middle schoolers, high schoolers, college students, newly graduated age group, like they are so hungry for what it really looks like to date well. And I think this is such good material. But I also think there is so, like, you are paving the way for them to get to see this is there, like what you're seeing is so short of what the glory of what we are supposed to behold. Like there is so much more, and I cannot wait for these women who listen to this to really behold, like there is so much more than just begging for any feedback. Like there is someone who really there is a God who has made this whole population of people that really that knows how to love. And I do think there is so much goodness for us left on this earth, but to get to behold who he is, like he is such the ultimate picture of marriage. So I agree to just keep on even looking at Song of Solomon. Um, I dove into that this past summer, the Passion Translation, just of who says of his bride, like what he says when he looks at us, and just the beauty he beholds in his bride. Like I have never read those words from Song of Solomon and just felt so cherished and so hopeful, even going through so many destructive relationships. So I love that you just point to Jesus and say there is a God who just thinks and beholds you and knows how to love you, and there will be men to do that. But just keep looking in the Bible for that beautiful picture of love in the Song of Solomon.
Yeah, 100%. And I just want to thank you, Danielle, so much for joining me on this really important conversation. I think it's so needed right now in our society. And I just know that so many are going to be able to relate to it and it will speak to them. And I just want to remind my listeners and viewers to live each day with purpose,
Mm.
making a difference one day, one life at a time.